following show is a paid program.
Hey family, how you doing today? I'm telling you, we have the best of the best in the building. Mr. Bo Porter, I've got to tell you who this young man is. He has done remarkable things. Major League Baseball Director of Coaching Development, Sports Broadcast Analyst, CEO of Core Multimedia Group and Core Magazine, and also over the Core 100. He is also CEO of Bo Porter Enterprise, and we will talk about his whole career in a few minutes. But one thing Mr. Bo Porter says all the time: competition. When you suit up for competition, you must acknowledge that both losing and winning are possible outcomes, but winning requires more. Hey, my friend, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Cam. Thank you so much for that introduction. And I'm just honored to be here with you and join you on your platform that you've done, tremendous work in building this platform. And it's an honor to be here with you today.
Man, I could not sleep.
Is that true? I got a good night's sleep last night. But I got a good night's sleep just anticipating being here with you today.
I'm excited. I wanted to let people know, really, first of all, who you are and how you started.
Well, I would have to go all the way back to Brick City, and I was born and raised in Newark, New Jersey. Yeah. And when I think back to, I would say, my circumstances. Right. And that's why whenever I get a chance to speak to people that may be in a rut or they're going through something and they're trying to figure out, how am I going to get out of this? Right. Ships don't sink because of the water around them. Ships sink because of the water that get in them. And I was born and raised, if you've never been to Newark, New Jersey, you talk about drug abuse, you talk about drug pushing, you talk about, gang violence, armed robbery, you name it, it was all in my community. Right. But I didn't allow it to get within me. My mom had me at 16 years old, so she was a teenage parent. But it takes a village. Yeah. And the community pulled together once they realized that I had some God-given athletic ability, and they helped me stay clear of all the things that was going on around me.
That's a good thing. It takes a village.
Yes, it does. It takes a village, and it takes people that care about people. Right. Because I could have very well, I talked to, friends of mine that they were able to make it out of Newark. We had so many of our friends that did not make it out. Right. Whether it was, the drug abuse may have, made them go down that path, or they decided to sell drugs and ended up in jail. I remember one day my high school basketball coach, he said something, and that's why coaching is so important. Right. And I was 15 years old. We had one of my teammates who was probably a better athlete than me. His name was Ronald Bill. Ronald Bill, we have a basketball game. He leaves. He was living a double life. He was wanting to play sports and wanting to be an athlete, but he also wanted to be on the streets. So after a game, he goes out and he's selling drugs on the street. Something goes wrong with a sale, and he gets shot. Now, he's arguably one of the best players on our team. We come back to practice the next day. Coach Gavin gets the news, Ronald Bill's in the hospital. He got shot. And he comes into the gym, and he's pissed off. Tells all of us, he goes, get on the baseline. Every last one of you, get on the baseline. So we get on the baseline, and he said, let me tell you guys something. He said, those streets out there, they are undefeated. Undefeated. He said, everyone out there, they're going to end up in one or two places, either dead or in jail. And I sat there and I'm thinking to myself, he goes, and let me tell you something else. There's no pension plan out there in those streets. He said, when the next group of young guys come along, they're going to run them old heads off the street or off the corner. He goes, and what are you going to do with the rest of your life? because you can't just hustle and run the streets your whole life. And that spoke to me. I was not in the streets, but a lot of times when I think back to my childhood, I didn't know everything that I wanted to do.
Right.
But I knew what I didn't want to do.
That's the key.
I knew what I didn't want to do. I didn't want to be a drug dealer. I didn't want to use drugs. I didn't want to rob people. I didn't want to do any of those things. I didn't want to steal cars. I knew I didn't want to go to jail. So by figuring out what I didn't want to do, it actually helped navigate me to the things that I wanted to do.
Right. I like what you said about that. I also love what you said, coaching. People need coaches. They need a mentor sometimes. Even now, 40 million people we talked about earlier, unemployed. They're no longer in the same business that they were in. Many have to start over in some kind of capacity.
I think when you start to talk about coaching, and I've been my entire post-career, even before I got into coaching, it's one of those things you have to realize the meaning and the purpose of being a coach. And when you think about a coach, what is our number one job? Our number one job as a coach is to help each and every last one of the people that we are blessed enough to have the opportunity to actually coach and lead, to help them reach their full potential.
Right.
So when you think about those 40 million people, and I use the acronym HOPE when I talk about coaching, because I think it goes hand in hand.
Right.
And for me, HOPE represents helping other people excel. So if you think of it from the lens of how can I help other people excel, it puts you in the best frame of mind to actually coach people and put them in a position where they can excel. When you look at everything that's going on in our country, there are a lot of people that are having to pivot, change gears, get into a job venture that they probably did not think 3 or 4 years ago that they would be entering. And that's why it's so important also to network.
Right.
So to me, network, coaching, they go hand in hand because it puts people in position to actually get to their passion and understanding exactly what it is they want to do in life.
Absolutely. And going along the way, you come out of you hear your coach. You know you don't want to do those things. Where do we go? We're at New Jersey, but now we're going to college. How do we decide that? You know,
when I was coming out of high school, I was recruited by pretty much everyone in the country.
Right.
You know, I played all 3 sports, and to kids that, and I want to talk about this because I have to, this specialization that AAU or, year-round baseball that's happening today, I've always looked back to my own career. I never had arm trouble. I stayed away from injuries, and I can attest that to the fact that I went from sport to sport to sport, so I never experienced burnout. I could not imagine at 13, 14, 15 years old playing 200 baseball games in a year. I couldn't imagine. But because I was a 3-sport guy, I went from football season to basketball season to baseball season, and I actually believe that each one of the sports helped me with the other sport. So as my recruiting started, I made it plain and clear to all the schools that were recruiting me that I was going to play 2 sports in college. I wanted to play football. I wanted to play baseball. And many people don't know this, but I can say it here on the Cam Hill show.
There you go.
That basketball is actually my favorite sport. So if I was hard pressed out of high school to pick one, I would have picked basketball because it's the sport that I actually enjoy the most. So, but football and baseball split up the best. It gave me a chance to do 2 of the 3. So as I went through my recruiting process, I was anticipating being drafted. My mom had made it perfectly clear to all of the scouts that he's not signing out of high school, so don't waste your time. He's going to go to college and he's going to get a degree. So as I started going on my visits, it was it was evident to me that some universities cared more about your academic success than others. And I will just tell you what sold me on the University of Iowa. University of Iowa kept coming, every week, because I verbally committed to Miami. So when I went to Miami on my recruiting trip, now you got to remember, I'm 17 years old.
Right.
South Beach, Miami.
Yes.
One of my best friends, Mark Caesar, who was already at Miami, him and I had already talked about, going to school together. So as I visit there and started to look at the culture and the atmosphere, the University of Iowa, even after I verbally committed and said, I'm going to go to Miami, they still showed up at my high school, Weekway High School, every week. And Coach Bob Elliott, rest his soul, who was one of my biggest mentors and one of my best coaches ever, he would end up being my defensive back coach at Iowa. He set me down one day. This was still during the recruiting period, so National Signing Day hadn't happened. He said, Bo, let me tell you something. He said, talent-wise, you will fit right in at Miami. He said, but culture, it's going to be a challenge for you because you're just not cut from that cloth. And at that point, my high school football coach was trying to convince me. He said, won't you just take a visit to Iowa?
Right. Because
he coached Andre Tippett, Noam Granger, and some other guys from New Jersey that ended up going to Iowa. So I said, okay, what do I have to lose? I take the trip. I get off the airplane. They pick me up at the airport, and they take me to Student Athletic Services. Now, I had been to Penn State, North Carolina State, Florida State. The University of Iowa was the first recruiting trip that took me straight to Student Athletic Services. I arrived at Student Athletic Services. Fred Mims, Sue Walker, Greg Isaac, they ran Student Athletic Services. On a whiteboard, they had every class that I would take from the moment I stepped on campus at the University of Iowa.
Wow.
Knowing that I wanted to major in broadcasting communication.
Right.
They had every class on a whiteboard, and they said, we anticipate, you're going to play both sports. You're probably going to get drafted in baseball after your junior year, but when you get drafted, you'll roughly need about 9 to 12 hours to graduate. You can come back, play your senior year of football, graduate, and then you can decide whether you want to go play NFL football or you want to go play Major League Baseball. They completely mapped it out.
Right.
And because I wanted to major in broadcasting communication, just to throw a cherry on top, the phone rings and it's Tom Brokaw. So I hear you want to be a Hawkeye and you want to major in broadcasting communication. Well, you can't go wrong, University of Iowa. Obviously, he's a huge Iowa supporter and an alumni, and that blew me away. So I left the University of Iowa with complete conviction, this is where I need to spend the next 4 years.
Right.
And that was a decision that I made with my mom as we looked at just the overall university. And I can sit here today, it was the best decision I ever made. And to give the University of Iowa even more credit, I followed what they had on that whiteboard to a T. I got drafted after my junior year in baseball. I signed with the Chicago Cubs. I went and played that summer, half a season. I came back, played my senior year of football, graduated, and then made the decision to go play baseball.
Wow. They had it all mapped out.
They had it mapped out. And I followed it to a T, and the rest of it is history. But I tell kids all the time, the biggest decision that you're going to make as a student athlete is where you're going to go to school.
Right. That's true.
It's the biggest decision that you're going to make. And a lot of times people make that decision and they solely look at the sports component of it.
Right.
They don't look at the whole person development component of it. And that's a major, major factor.
I'm glad you said that. You're going into something that's great. You got drafted. When many get drafted, that big check comes, right? That money comes. We're young.
Yes. And our eyes are big.
Our eyes are
Our
big.
eyes are big,
right?
yes.
Let's talk to people about that, because parents need to be part of this involvement. What should we do? We don't know. Many of them are from different parts of life.
Yes.
They haven't seen any of that. But we're going to do that right after this break.
Okay.
We'll do that right after this break.
We'll be right back to the Cam Hill Show after these messages.
Light up your new year with a top-rated luxury SUV from Ron Carter Cadillac. Drive the new 2021 XT4 Luxury Collection for $319 a month, the new 2021 XT5 Luxury Collection for $399 a month, or the new 2021 XT6 Luxury Collection for $459 a month. All for 39 months lease with just $1 down. Gulf Freeway, just 2 minutes south of the Beltway.
Shop smarter when you shop Ron Carter. RonCarterCadillac.com.
Amazing things for you.
My prenatal promise is to make sure my baby is safe and healthy, because I know it is possible to acquire syphilis, HIV, or other STDs without knowing it. Getting tested is my very first chance to protect my baby. Doctors are required to give expectant mothers 3 separate tests for syphilis. If you're pregnant, ask your doctor if you're being tested properly for syphilis and other STDs. Congenital syphilis can lead to a miscarriage, stillbirth, or an infant death. Don't risk your baby's health. To find out more, visit myprenatalpromise.com.
And now back to the Cam Hill Show.
Hey family, we are back with Mr. Bo Porter. We were just talking about just a little bit about how you got into it, went to school and everything, but we left off a little bit about the fact that, hey, we were talking about school.
Yes, and when you start to talk about, athletes, and you posed the question about getting the check and people coming from different backgrounds. Well, out of high school, I was offered $100,000 by the Montreal Expos. Mm-hmm. And me being 17 years old, and I think back to this, it was, my senior year of high school. My mom, like I said to you, had me at 16 years old. She's working 2-3 jobs trying to make ends meet. Our lights then got turned off. We're eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and cold cut sandwiches for dinner. And I'm saying to my mom, I said, Mom, time out. I said, these people are going to give me $100,000 to go play baseball. Mm-hmm. And she said, son, you are going to school. She said, you're going to get your education. Baseball is not going anywhere. None of these sports are going anywhere. She said, but if you go out there and you break your leg and you can't play baseball anymore, she said, no one can take away from you what you have here, which is your education. Mm-hmm. She said, now, once you get your education, she said, you can sign with anybody. Mm-hmm. And she said, the money will be tenfold 3 or 4 years later. And she was right.
Wow. So
I shared that to say, you have to be very strategic in understanding that education is the ultimate game changer. Mm-hmm. Because there are many people that get that big check, and because they're not educated, they actually don't even know how to spend it.
Right.
Or save it.
Right. That's true. That's true. Absolutely. And that's a big, huge part of what's happened to a lot of us.
Yes, a huge part. It was one of the reasons why I started Core Magazine. Yeah. And when you look at Core and the 6 feature stories that reside in each one of our publications, one of the feature stories is Ball to Business. And when I thought about Ball to Business, it was knowing all of the horror stories that we hear about athletes. I wanted to be able to highlight athletes who have championed their balling career, mm-hmm. and now they're championing the business space. Right. So when you look at Ball to Business, that's where that name actually came from. Mm-hmm. And it speaks to, so many people in the athletic space not being able to make that transition once the uniform comes off into what we call real life.
Absolutely. Now that you spoke about Core, I love that. Let's talk about how it came about. How was it birthed?
Well, it was actually it was birthed during the pandemic.
Right.
So, when you think about, COVID, and I went down to spring training. So I'll backtrack first. Mm-hmm. When I was a kid, me and one of my best friends, John MacGyver, mm-hmm. We used to walk because we went to school at Weequahic High School, which was across the bridge on the other side of town. So we would always walk across the bridge to school and back from school. So we're walking one day, and I never forget this. It was the Sports Illustrated cover with Marcus Allen on the front of it. Mm-hmm. And Marcus Allen was one of our favorite players at the time. We all wanted to be an NFL running back. So we're sitting there as kids, and we're talking about this Sports Illustrated magazine. And some of my buddies, they're saying, wow, one day, man, that's going to be you in that magazine, or I'm going to be in this magazine. And I said to them that day, I said, well, I want to own the magazine. Mm-hmm. And my best friend, John MacGyver, when we launched Core, he actually told that story to the audience. I didn't even remember it at the time. So he shared that story. He said, this is where Bold Mind has always been. But so all along, there was a part of me, I love to write. Mm-hmm. That's why I've published 2 books, and I'm in the process of publishing a 3rd book. When COVID hit, it was the notion of people need hope. Mm-hmm. And it went back to that whole notion of helping other people excel. And I started to think about when I was younger, whether it was Jet, Ebony, and now you have, Black Enterprise, you have, Business Weekly, you have Forbes, mm-hmm. you have all of these different publications. So as I started to think about CORE, and CORE is an acronym for Champions of Real Excellence. Mm-hmm. It was the messaging of how can I put something together that helped people champion their lives. Mm-hmm. That was the whole notion. And as I started to put it together, it was, okay, I want to create these feature stories that allow us the opportunity to interview champions, right, to talk to champions, and really push their stories out to people, that people now become inspired to go, okay, I can do that, right, or I can be that, or I've been there, and this person was able to overcome it, so now I feel like I can overcome it. So when you look at the feature stories, and our apex stories is at the pinnacle of excellence. Mm-hmm. So each quarter, we try to find someone who's an apex of business, apex of leadership, apex of sports, and we want to tell their story. Then you go to Ball the Business, and then because philanthropy is a major part of my heart, giving back to our community, we have our Champions for Causes. So we seek nonprofit organizations and people that are doing things in the community, and we want to highlight, their foundation and their organizations with our Champions for Causes. And then the last feature story is our Me to Me. You talk about mentorship and how important mentorship is. Yes. Our Me to Me stories, and it's a capital M-E, mm-hmm, the number 2, and then a lowercase m-e. So it's almost like the person that which we are featuring, they're writing a letter to their younger self. Mm-hmm. So it's me to me. Mm-hmm. So those are the stories that will reside in each one of the publications. As we headed toward the new year, after launching CORE in October, I started to really get the itch to do something for Black people. And with Black History Month coming right around the corner, I actually sent a message to our team. And before I even go a step farther, I want to just thank our team, our core team, from Bridget, who does all of our social media, to our contributing writers, Debbie Taylor, J.R. Gamble, Royce Kennebrew, Melita Poe, our web developer, Holly. The entire team has done tremendous work, and I probably could be forgetting someone because all the names just not coming to me right now, but they have done a tremendous job, right, of putting this body of work together and taking my ideas and actually bringing them to the finish line. They've done great work. Our videographer, Dale Lamar, he's done tremendous work. So when February 1st was rolling around, I just wanted to do something that I felt that would uplift the lives and the stories of Black excellence. Right. I look so often when you look at all of the social injustice and inequality and all of the negative things that are happening around us, I just felt like I wanted to put something together that is for champions by champions.
Absolutely. Let's do this. Let's look at some of the people that are in Core 100. That's the magazine itself.
Yes, the cover is great.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just we wanted to get everyone on, and there go Cam.
Man, that's me.
Yes. And I want to thank all the people that
Winfrey.
nominated people for the Core 100
Absolutely.
as well. And it's a combination of what we call, the no-brainer, black excellence, but then it's also it's those people that fly under the radar that people may not know about, that we really wanted to give this platform to and bring them to the forefront. People that are entrepreneurs that started their own business on their own dime. They didn't go out and get a loan, or they wasn't, handed a trust from a family fund. They were able to, roll up their sleeves and make things happen. So it's a combination of black excellence and people that are really setting the stage for what it really means to be a champion.
Absolutely, and you did very well with that. I'm telling you, when I was told about it, I couldn't. Diana Patterson, who is my executive producer, was the one said, "Hey, you got it." Girl, no, I don't. No, I don't.
Yes.
But I'm telling you, thank you for the opportunity. Thank you so much for even thinking about this. Not only being a dream of yours at the time, just think about that. Magazine, you were thinking, but look at what you've done now,
It's when the fanfare, following it, sometimes you set out to do something.
Right.
And people ask me all the time, they say, wow, I mean, you have this company and that company and you're into this and you're into that. I can only zero it in to one component. And for me, it doesn't matter what business venture of mine you look at, it's designed to help people.
Right.
Every undertaking in which I have ever signed my name on, I can step back and look at it and go, okay, if we execute this, it's going to help people.
Absolutely.
Because in my opinion, everything that we do for ourselves will die with us.
It will.
Everything we do for other people has a chance to live forever.
That's good. That's good right there. That's good. And looking at everything you've done, you're also an author.
Yes, and each one of my books, I actually set out to write The Endgame, which ended up being my second book. When I set out to write The Endgame, it was after my playing career was over. I was now coaching and speaking about wanting to take everything in which I've learned.
Right.
I received so many phone calls and people, asking advice. And so I started taking a lot of those conversations and just taking down notes. And those notes led me to, okay, why do people play sports?
Right.
That was the first question I asked myself. So now that was like the reason we play sports. And then I started thinking about, okay, what is the responsibility of everybody involved in sports? What is the reality of sports? Because you think about myself, and there's been only 18,500 Major League Baseball players in the history of the game. So when you look at the millions and millions of people that are going to play Little League Baseball, high school baseball, college baseball, you start to realize that there's only 18,000 that's going to actually play in the big leagues.
Yes. So
I started thinking about the reality and people, selling parents a pipe dream when the kid is 9 years old. I can help your kid play in the big leagues. No, you can't.
Right.
You can't. You can't. That's an exclusive group. So when I started thinking about the reality, I wanted to give that messaging, to society. And then the last one was the reward, and the reward that we all can gain from playing sports and being a part of this capitalistic enterprise that puts us in a position to use our platform to help so many people.
Right.
So I put that book together, and I was actually rounding third and headed home as far as, publishing it. So I sat down with my publisher, and when I was coaching, I started a book club when I was coaching. And the book club was from, what gave me the idea was Tony Dungy's book, which was Uncommon. And I started reading that book, and it inspired me each day to send just an encouraging message to my players. So I started sending what was called, just a daily message to my players. Within that daily message, my players start sharing it with other players.
Right.
Before you know it, I had the coaching staff coming to me saying, "Hey, I heard you sending out, motivational messages to everyone. Add me to your list." So it's what started out as a list of 20 grew to a list of 3,000. And it was, unannounced to me, it was being shared, not just throughout baseball, but throughout other sports. I had people, reaching out to me, "Oh, can you add me to your daily motivational list?" So when I sat down with my publisher, she started looking at all of the emails from the daily devotional. And she said, "Bo, I don't mean to get you off track." So Holly, thank you. She said, "I don't mean to get you off track." She said, "But I think this is your first book." So Real Life Empowered actually came from me doing daily devotionals over a 2.5-year period. And when I looked at it, when you look at the Empowered acronym, it's just 9 components of life that basically centers around whole person development, starting with education and going all the way to dedication, which is the D. And we basically took the Empowered acronym and we did 365 days of a daily devotional that will help someone live an empowered life.
Wow. That's something right there. And not only did it start with your group, your team, people kept asking you and asking you and asking you.
It just started expanding, people sharing the message. And then those people saying, "Okay, well, how do I receive the message?"
Right.
Well, you have to message Bo. He has to add you to the group. It started out as a text message.
Right.
Because, you can only put 20 people in a group.
Right.
So at one point, I was like sending it to like 8 or 9 different groups.
Right.
So then Holly, she set it up where people can actually go online. They were able to subscribe. And then now it started becoming a group email.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You mentioned something. After you playing baseball, right? This is 200 games. I mean, this is crazy at this point, right?
Yes.
200.
Yes. Counting spring training, yes.
Literally 200 games. Then, you're looking at it. You retire. Then you decide, what? You go and coach?
It's one of those things where as I was, from the time I was in Little League, I found myself being named captain on almost every team I played on. And for me, it was one of those things where I'm going to show up every day and I'm going to do everything I can to beat the person across from me. And I'm going to hold everybody else to that same standard. So my coaches recognized that as I got to the back end of my playing career, Freddie Gonzalez was one of my coaches. And he came to me one day, he said, "Hey," "I don't know what you're planning on doing when you finish playing." He said, "But if I ever get a major league job," he goes, "you're going to be on my staff." And I looked at him, I said, "Whoa, time out. I'm not ready to stop playing yet." And he said, No. He said, "I'll listen to you." He actually calls me coach. He said, "Coach, I'll listen to you." He goes, "The players respect you." He goes, "You know every aspect of the game." He said, "You are not afraid to say what needs to be said." And he said, I value that. So when I finished playing, I actually took a year off after, playing as long as I played and not ever really having time to myself. I wanted to kind of step away from the game and figure out, okay, what do I want to do? So I took a year off. Bill Parcells, who's one of my biggest mentors, Dusty Baker, Freddie Gonzalez, Bobby Cox. I started talking to those guys that offseason. The Cincinnati Reds came into town. I went over to the ballpark and hung out with Dusty Baker. Me and him started talking, and he said, "You really should think about getting into coaching." He said, "The game needs you." And after that, I spoke with Freddie, talked to Dan Jennings, who was with the Marlins at the time. The Marlins brought me in as a coach. No one can even guess this, but the following year, Freddie Gonzalez interviews for the Marlins manager's job. He gets hired. His first phone call was to me, Bo, I want you to be my third base coach. So immediately I'm coaching third base in the big leagues. And that kind of put me on the fast track in the eyes of, the landscape of baseball. And within 5 years later, I was managing the Houston Astros.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's do this. We'll take a break and we'll be right back with the Cam Hill Show.
We'll be right back to the Cam Hill Show after these messages.
Light up your new year with a top-rated luxury SUV from Ron Carter Cadillac. Drive the new 2021 XT4 Luxury Collection for $319 a month, the new 2021 XT5 Luxury Collection for $399 a month, or the new 2021 XT6 Luxury Collection for $459 a month. All for 39 months lease with just $1 down. Gulf Freeway, just 2 minutes south of the Beltway.
Shop smarter when you shop Ron Carter. RonCarterCadillac.com.
Amazing things for you.
My prenatal promise is to make sure my baby is safe and healthy, because I know it is possible to acquire syphilis, HIV, or other STDs without knowing it. Getting tested is my very first chance to protect my baby. Doctors are required to give expectant mothers 3 separate tests for syphilis. If you're pregnant, ask your doctor if you're being tested properly for syphilis and other STDs. Congenital syphilis can lead to a miscarriage, stillbirth, or an infant death. Don't risk your baby's health. To find out more, visit myprenatalpromise.com.
And now back to the Cam Hill Show.
Cam, you guys will send me the link to share.
Hey, thank you so much. We are right back with Mr. Bo Porter. We are going to talk about a lot of things. You are partnering with McDonald's leadership. Let's talk about that.
That's our Champions of Leadership, and it actually started out with me doing a speaking engagement when I was managing the Houston Astros.
Wow.
Public speaking is something that I enjoy, and when you talk about helping people, especially people that are in the business space, being able to help them with their leadership team, we all know that leadership basically impacts everything within your organization, within your business, within your family. So when I put together Champions of Leadership, it was designed to reach out to corporate America and come in and be that voice of reasoning as it relates to leadership development. And I met Maya Smith Edmonds and Harry Smith during the Core 100. And after their research of me, here it is, we're trying to honor them. She reached back out and she said, I was online and I saw that you've done leadership training for Chick-fil-A and many other clients. She said, I've sent my organization through different leadership trainings through McDonald's. She was like, but I would love to interact and connect and discuss how you could come in and do leadership training for our team. I was like, sure. So I sent over some correspondence. We actually had our first session last week. She was thoroughly impressed, and it's great when you know that you're able to help someone grow their business by way of impacting the lives in which they touch each and every day.
That is good. That's good. So we've got leadership training. We've got some other things up. You have a new book coming out?
Yes, 78 Keys to Champion Your Life. It's something that I've been working on for a long time, and it's an alphabet chain. Okay. And I'll say this for our viewers. It's from authentic to zero. Right. So when you think about the alphabet chain being 26 letters in the alphabet, words are very powerful. And I think in society today, when you start to think about people's attention span, I set out to write a book that it's a quick hit, meaning, when you start to read it, it's 3 words in each one of the alphabets that really represents being a champion. Right. And it inspires people to want to do more and be more. So I'm excited about it. We're trying to get it out this spring. We're in the final stages, rounding third and coming home. And I look forward to getting it out. So make sure you head to the website and pick up 78 Keys to Champion Your Life.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you're doing that, especially with Dreamers now. There's 40 million people, like we spoke before, that are unemployed. And all of them have a dream.
Yes.
Everyone does. And many of them at that time did not really want to work, okay? Yes, they had to because they needed to have a job, but many have a purpose, right?
Yes.
And that's what I loved about 78 Keys.
Yes, and it really, when you start to think about when we succeed at our highest,
right,
it's because we tap into our purpose. And people, ask me a lot. They see a lot of the things in which I've done, and they go, "How'd you do this? And how'd you do this? And how'd you do that?" And I tell them, I say, "You know what? I got real good at working through failure."
Yes, exactly.
That's what I got real good at dealing with failure. And that's the truth. I tell people all the time. I mean, life is not going to be this straight line of success in which we all would love it to be. You have to really get good at dealing with failure.
Absolutely, absolutely. You have an coming soon Core Cinema Presents there. Let's talk about this.
And this will be the first time in which I've discussed this, but Cam and I were talking about it, during the break. And Core, people look at Core. Yes, we launched the magazine, but the Core Multimedia Group is multifaceted. There is the magazine. There's going to be podcasts that will be coming soon, but we are working on our first film, which is Empowered, and it's based on a true story. There will be more information coming to our website, but I'm excited about it. When you start to think about cinema, you start to think about leaving a legacy. When you look at print media, you look at digital media, and you look at films. I mean, I still, think back to like Cooley High. Yes. And movies that when I get in my theater room, just wanted to know about, the history of our people. And I charged our group. I said, this cinema space is an area where from me being an African American and wanting to produce movies and write movies, I think that it's an opportunity to really uplift our people.
Absolutely. I love the word empowered.
Yes, when you start to think about empowered, you want to do everything that you can to empower people to reach their full potential. So the movie itself is based on a true story. It's going to dive into the role of the church, the role of the community. It's going to speak to relationships of husband and wife. It's going to speak to hardship. And it's going to speak to getting to the other side of through. And how do you get to the other side of through? You get to the other side of through by being empowered.
That's it. Some more things that you've got that you've been doing. You've always been coaching people and mentoring people anyway along the way.
Yes, it's something that's near and dear to me, whether it's sports, whether it's business related. I'm all for helping people. And, it's only 24 hours in a day. And I tell people all the time, the student shows up when they start to really listen to the teacher.
That's it.
Because the messenger can be as clear as they want to be. At the same time, the student have to be ready to receive.
Absolutely. Your leadership that you have, the actual things that you have put together, it's for all businesses.
For all businesses.
Yes.
It doesn't matter. I tell people this all the time. It doesn't matter if you're a McDonald's and you're selling hamburgers.
Right.
Or if you are a dentist and you cleaning teeth. If you are a mechanic and you're changing a tire. At the end of the day, you are dealing with people. And you're in the business of people. And when it comes to people and dealing with people and giving them an experience, that's where leadership comes in at. And if you're able to duplicate yourself within your business, I tell people all the time, your business is only going to be as good as the people you surround yourself with. So you can be a good leader. If you're not duplicating yourself within your business model, your business is going to fold at some point, or it's going to be hindered at some point because the weakest components of your business are going to get exposed. So I tell people this: if you are in business, the best thing that you can do for your team is to develop more leaders.
Absolutely, especially during this COVID. I know. I mean, nobody was expecting it. Nobody was prepared for this because they didn't know what it.
Nobody was prepared for it. But this is what makes leadership development and training even more paramount today. Is because of COVID and because of the strain that has been put on the value of a dollar. People are going to be even that much more intentional about where they spend their money.
Right.
So if people are going to be that much more intentional about where they spend their money, imagine if they come to your place of business and have a bad experience.
Right.
If they have a bad experience,
That's it.
not only are you going to lose that client or that customer, you're going to lose probably 20 more.
Right.
Because word of mouth, and we all know how fast social media travel these days.
Yes.
I mean, it's gonna travel even faster, and you're gonna lose even more business. And that's the reverse side of that is if you staff yourself with great leadership and people come to your place of employment, your place of business, and your staff and your people give them a great experience, your business is gonna grow and you're gonna profit.
I truly agree with you on that, because if you look at the lines at certain, restaurants, they still have the lines, even during COVID.
Exactly.
Even during COVID, they're around the corner.
Because of the experience.
That's it. Even during the experience. I love that. What's next? What else do we have? What else we have going on?
I tell you, I want to continue to just use the platform that God has blessed me with to inspire and empower more people. I encourage people each and every day, tap into your passion, find out what you're passionate about, and do everything that you can to put yourself in a position where you can use your skill sets to help other people.
Absolutely. We have a lot of parents that are sitting on the line that are sitting there and they're actually looking, and they have children that are either in Little League or they're, little children that are in football or something like that. And now that it's been COVID, they've been kind of sporadic, but really don't know what to do as far as their children. They want to go to school, but again, like your mom said, you have to get an education. Yes, sports are good, but let's talk to them about that.
Well, I think at the end of the day, you have to let your kids know this. Sports is a career with a timeline. Education lasts forever. And I'm not just going to talk to the parents. I'm also talk to the coaches.
Absolutely.
Because I think it's very important to send a message to young student athletes early on that we're not special, that you're not going to get preferential treatment. And I'll share this story, Cam, if we have time.
Yeah.
My sophomore year of high school, my mom, and, I'm going to go back to my basketball coach because this story includes him as well. I'm leading the team in scoring. My mom, I go from a B to a C in English. Now, I've been on AB honor roll all the way to this point. I go from a B to a C, and this happened over the Christmas holiday. You know how you get your report card right before the holiday? Well, I was late completing a book report. So my English teacher, she said, I'm going to drop you down to a B until you turn this book report in. Well, I was going to do the book report over the Christmas holiday, give it back to her, and then now my grade is going to get changed. Well, my mom looks at my report card, and she goes, oh, it's not going to be no basketball this holiday. So she put me on punishment. My high school basketball coach, he comes to the house, he knocks on the door. He's like, Miss Porter, he goes, listen, Bo was my best, he's the best student on the team.
Right.
My mother said, well, I'm not raising the other kids on the team, I'm raising him. She goes, and if basketball is stopping him from getting the best grades that he can get, then basketball and school don't mix right now. She did not let me play. I cried and cried. My coach comes back to the house. He's begging her, please let him play, please let him play. Ask me if I got another B.
Never again, did you?
Never again. So I say that to parents, to educators, we're doing them no favors.
Right.
By moving them along. Because the best thing, when you start to think about discipline is not what you do to someone, it's what you do for them. It's not what you're doing to them, it's what you do for them.
That's good.
So the discipline that you're giving them now is going to help them be the man or the woman that they need to be tomorrow. Absolutely.
Let's leave some last words to the viewers, and also, how do they contact you social media wise?
Well, you can contact me. I was on Facebook. It's Bo Porter. On Instagram, it's at the real Bo Porter, and you can go to the website. The core website is core-mag.com. You can go to BoPorterEnterprise.com as well. Cam, I want to thank you and all of your host people here. This has been a wonderful time. I've really enjoyed your show.
Absolutely. What would you like to leave with the viewers?
Well, I just want to leave with the viewers. Make sure that you guys follow the Cam Hill Show because he is doing great things with his special guests. And I will reiterate, it's been a pleasure for me to join the Cam Hill Show. Thank you guys so much for watching.
Thanks so much for the opportunity. My friend, it's been fun. What in the world?
Went by too fast.
It went by too fast.
Way too fast.
Thanks so much for joining the Cam Hill Show here with Bo Porter. See you Monday, 12:31, 30 Central Standard Time. Bye.